Emma Martinez woke up that morning with a big smile on her face. The sun was shining through her bedroom window, and she knew today was going to be very special. Her mother had told her many times about this day. A very important person was coming to their city. There would be a big parade with soldiers and horses and beautiful carriages. Emma was 8 years old and had Down syndrome. This made her a little different from other children, but it also made her see the world in a special way. She found joy in simple things that other people might not notice. The way sunlight danced on water made her laugh. The sound of birds singing made her clap her hands. And today, she was going to see something she had never seen before. Sophia Martinez, Emma's mother, had been planning this day for weeks. She knew how much Emma loved bright colors and pretty things. The royal parade would have both. Sophia had seen the pictures in the newspaper. The guards wore red uniforms with gold buttons. The horses had colorful decorations. The carriages were painted in blue and white with flowers on the sides. Emma jumped out of bed and ran to her closet. She wanted to wear her best dress. It was pink with small white flowers on it. Her grandmother had bought it for her birthday. Emma loved the way it felt when she spun around. The dress would twirl and make her feel like she was dancing. Sophia helped Emma get ready. She brushed her long brown hair and put it in 2 pretty braids. Emma looked at herself in the mirror and giggled. She thought she looked very fancy. Sophia smiled watching her daughter. Emma always made her happy, even on difficult days. After breakfast, Sophia showed Emma the small flag she had made. It was red, white, and blue with a golden star in the middle. Emma's eyes grew wide when she saw it. She had watched her mother work on it for 3 evenings. Sophia had cut the fabric carefully and sewn it by hand. The star was made from shiny paper that sparkled in the light. Emma held the flag very carefully. She did not want to break it. Sophia had told her that waving the flag was a way to show respect to the important visitor. Emma did not fully understand what this meant, but she liked the idea of being respectful. Her mother had taught her that being kind and respectful was very important. They ate lunch early because they needed to leave the house by noon. The parade would start at 2 o'clock, but Sophia knew they needed to find a good place to stand. Many people would come to see the parade. If they arrived late, Emma might not be able to see anything. Sophia packed a small bag with water bottles and snacks. She also brought a folding chair for Emma. Her daughter sometimes got tired when she had to stand for a long time. Sophia wanted to make sure Emma would be comfortable during the whole event. The bus ride to the city center took 30 minutes. Emma pressed her face against the window and watched the buildings go by. She saw other families heading in the same direction. Many people carried flags and wore nice clothes. Some children had painted their faces with red, white, and blue colors. When they got off the bus, Emma could already hear music in the distance. A band was playing somewhere nearby. The sound made her heart beat faster with excitement. She had never heard such grand music before. It sounded like the music from the movies her mother sometimes watched. The streets were filled with people. Sophia held Emma's hand tightly as they walked toward the parade route. Police officers stood at every corner helping direct the crowds. Some officers smiled and waved at Emma when they saw her flag. This made her feel very important. As they got closer to the main street, Emma could see the metal barriers. These were put up to keep people in safe areas during the parade. Sophia explained that they would stand behind these barriers and watch from there. Emma nodded, but she was more interested in looking at all the exciting things around her. There were vendors selling balloons and small toys. One man had a cart full of colorful pinwheels that spun in the wind. Emma watched them turn and sparkle in the sunlight. Another woman was selling flowers that smelled very sweet. Emma wanted to smell them all. Sophia found a good spot along the barrier where Emma would have a clear view of the street. She set up the small chair and helped Emma sit down. From here, they could see the entire parade route. The street had been cleaned until it shined. Red carpets were rolled out in some places. Flowers were arranged in large pots along the sidewalks. Other families gathered around them. There was an elderly man with his grandson. The little boy looked about Emma's age. There was also a young couple with a baby in a stroller. Everyone seemed excited and happy. People talked quietly among themselves, sharing their excitement about what they were about to see. Emma swung her legs from the chair and looked around at everything. She had never seen so many people in one place before. She had never seen the city look so clean and decorated. Everything seemed magical to her. The regular busy street had been turned into something from a fairy tale. Sophia pointed down the street and explained to Emma which direction the parade would come from. She told her about the different things they would see. First would come the police motorcycles, then the band. After that would be the soldiers on horses. Finally, the important visitor would arrive in a special carriage. Emma listened carefully to everything her mother said. She asked many questions. Why did the visitor need so many people to protect them? Why were the soldiers wearing such fancy clothes? Why did people want to wave flags? Sophia answered each question as simply as she could. As they waited, Emma made friends with the little boy sitting near them. His name was Carlos, and he was 7 years old. He showed Emma his flag, which was bigger than hers but not as pretty. Emma let him hold her flag for a moment, and he let her touch his balloon. They both laughed when the wind almost took the balloon away. The time passed slowly, but Emma did not get bored. There was always something new to see or someone new to meet. She waved at the police officers. She smiled at the other children. She watched the vendors and listened to the music that continued to play from speakers hidden somewhere nearby. Sophia watched her daughter with love and pride. Emma always found joy in every situation. She never complained or got upset about waiting. She just enjoyed each moment as it came. This was one of the things Sophia loved most about Emma. Her daughter taught her to appreciate the simple pleasures in life. As 2 o'clock approached, more people arrived. The crowd grew larger and more excited. Emma could feel the energy around her. People began to stand up and look down the street. Someone shouted that they could see the motorcycles coming. Emma stood on her chair to get a better view, her small flag ready in her hand. The sound of motorcycles grew louder and louder. Emma could see them now, coming down the street like a parade of thunder. The police officers rode in perfect lines, their motorcycles shining in the afternoon sun. The engines made a deep rumbling, sound that Emma could feel in her chest. She had never heard anything so powerful before. Behind the motorcycles came the marching band. Emma's mouth opened wide when she saw them. There were at least 50 people walking in perfect rows. They wore bright blue uniforms with gold trim that sparkled as they moved. The big drums made boom-boom sounds that matched their footsteps. The trumpets played a song that made Emma want to dance. Emma began to bounce on her chair with excitement. She waved her little flag back and forth. The music filled her heart with joy. Some of the band members saw her enthusiasm and smiled as they marched past. One trumpet player even winked at her, which made Emma giggle and wave even harder. Sophia watched the parade, but she spent more time watching Emma. Her daughter's face was glowing with pure happiness. Emma clapped her hands with the rhythm of the music. She tried to copy the way the band members held their instruments. Sophia wished she could see the world through Emma's eyes, where everything was magical and wonderful. After the band came the horses. Emma had seen horses before at the petting zoo, but never like these. These horses were huge and beautiful. Their coats were brushed until they gleamed like silk. Their manes were braided with colorful ribbons. The riders wore tall black hats and red jackets with more gold buttons than Emma could count. The horses stepped high and proud, like they were dancing. To music only they could hear. Their hooves made a clip-clop sound on the street that reminded Emma of rain on the roof. Some horses had white markings on their faces that looked like stars. Emma pointed at each one and tried to count them all. One horse near the barrier was pure black except for white socks on all 4 feet. Emma thought it looked like the horse was wearing fancy shoes to the party. She giggled at this thought and told her mother. Sophia smiled and agreed that the horse did look very dressed up for the occasion. The riders sat perfectly straight on their horses. They looked ahead with serious faces, never turning to look at the crowd. Emma wondered why they looked so serious when everything around them was so beautiful and happy. She decided they must be concentrating very hard on making their horses walk in such perfect lines. As the horses passed, Emma noticed something that made her heart skip. Behind them came the royal guards on foot. These were the soldiers her mother had told her about. They wore the most amazing uniforms Emma had ever seen. The jackets were bright red with gold braiding that twisted and curved like vines. The buttons were so shiny they looked like tiny suns. Emma stood up on her chair to get a better look. The guards wore tall black hats with colorful feathers on top. Some feathers were red, some were white, and some were blue. They moved in the wind like they were waving hello to everyone. Emma waved back at the feathers, thinking they were waving at her. The guards carried rifles that gleamed silver in the sunlight. They held them perfectly straight as they marched. Their black boots were so shiny that Emma could see reflections in them. Every guard looked exactly the same height and walked at exactly the same speed. It was like watching a beautiful dance. Emma had never seen anything so wonderful in her whole life. The colors were brighter than her favorite crayons. The sounds were louder than her favorite songs. Everything moved together like a perfect picture that came to life. She felt like she was watching magic happen right in front of her. One guard caught Emma's attention more than the others. He was taller than the rest and walked at the front of his group. His uniform seemed to shine brighter than all the others. The gold braiding on his jacket made patterns that looked like flowers and leaves. His hat had the most beautiful feathers, and they danced in the breeze like tiny dancers. Emma stared at this guard with wide eyes. She had never seen a real person who looked so much like a prince from her storybooks. His face was serious but kind. His eyes looked straight ahead, but Emma thought she saw him glance at the crowd once or twice. She wondered what it would feel like to wear such a beautiful uniform. The guard's buttons caught the sunlight and sent little rainbows dancing on the wall behind Emma. She gasped with delight and pointed them out to her mother. Sophia smiled and nodded, but she was starting to notice something that worried her. Emma was leaning forward on her chair, trying to get closer to the parade. Emma began to move restlessly. Sitting still was becoming very difficult. The wonderful sights and sounds were calling to her. She wanted to be closer to the magic. She wanted to see the details of the uniforms. She wanted to hear the music better. Most of all, she wanted to see those beautiful shiny buttons up close. The little girl did not understand why there had to be barriers between her and all the wonderful things. In her mind, beautiful things were meant to be shared and enjoyed by everyone. She had been taught to be kind and friendly to people. These guards looked like the nicest people she had ever seen, with their pretty clothes and important job. Sophia noticed Emma becoming more excited and restless. She gently placed her hand on Emma's shoulder to keep her steady on the chair, but Emma was barely listening to her mother now. All her attention was focused on the amazing parade, especially on the lead guard with his magnificent uniform. Emma's eyes followed every detail of the guard's appearance. She noticed how his jacket fitted perfectly. She saw how his belt had a golden buckle that caught the light. She observed how his boots moved in perfect time with the other guards. Everything about him seemed designed to create wonder and amazement. The crowd around them was also getting more excited. People were cheering and waving flags. Children were calling out greetings to the guards. Some people were taking pictures with cameras and phones. The noise level was rising, and the energy was becoming electric. Emma felt this energy flowing through her like electricity. Her heart was beating fast with excitement. Her hands were shaking a little as she held her flag. She had never felt such strong emotions before. It was like all the happiness in the world was happening at the same time. The guard was getting closer now. Emma could see more details of his uniform. She could see the individual threads in the gold braiding. She could see her reflection in his shiny buttons. She could see the way his feathers moved with each step he took. Everything about him was perfect and beautiful. Without thinking about it, Emma began to lean further forward. The barrier was right in front of her, but it suddenly seemed very small and unimportant. All that mattered was getting closer to the beautiful guard and his amazing uniform. Her 8-year-old mind could not understand why something so wonderful should be kept at a distance. Sophia was talking to the woman next to her about how impressive the parade was. She glanced at Emma and saw her daughter leaning forward, but she thought Emma was just trying to see better. Sophia had no idea that Emma was about to do something that would change this ordinary day into something extraordinary. Emma's eyes were fixed on the lead guard. In her simple, innocent way, she had decided that she needed to get closer to him. She needed to see those beautiful buttons. She needed to understand what made his uniform so special. Most importantly, she wanted to share her joy with someone who looked so important and magnificent. Emma's excitement had reached a point where sitting still became impossible. The beautiful guard with his shining uniform was now only 20 feet away from her. She could see everything clearly now. His buttons were like tiny mirrors reflecting the sunlight. His gold braiding looked like it was made from real gold thread. His feathers danced in the breeze like they were alive. The barrier in front of Emma was about 3 feet high. For most adults, this would be a clear sign to stay back. But Emma saw it differently. To her 8-year-old eyes, it was just a small fence that was keeping her from something wonderful. She had climbed over bigger things in the playground at school. Emma looked at the gap between 2 sections of the barrier. It was small, but she was small too. Her mother was still talking to the lady next to her. Everyone around her was watching the parade and cheering. Nobody was paying attention to one little girl in a pink dress. Emma made her decision quickly. She slipped off her chair quietly and moved toward the gap in the barrier. Her small size was perfect for squeezing through spaces that would stop bigger people. She held her flag carefully so it would not get caught or torn. In her mind, she was not doing anything wrong. She just wanted to get closer to the beautiful things. Sophia was enjoying a conversation with Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman standing next to them. They were talking about how wonderful it was to see such a grand parade in their city. Mrs. Chen was telling Sophia about the last royal visit 30 years ago when she was young. Sophia glanced toward Emma's chair and saw it was empty. For a moment, Sophia thought Emma had just gotten down to stretch her legs. But when she looked around and could not see her daughter anywhere nearby, panic began to rise in her chest. Sophia called Emma's name, but the noise from the crowd and the band made it hard for anyone to hear her. Emma had successfully squeezed through the gap in the barrier. She was now standing on the street side, in the area that was supposed to be, kept clear for the parade. The pavement felt different under her feet. It was smoother and cleaner than the sidewalk where the crowd stood. She felt like she had stepped into a special world. The guard was now only 10 feet away from her. Emma could see his face clearly now. He had kind eyes and a strong jaw. His mustache was perfectly trimmed and neat. Even though his expression was serious, Emma thought he looked like someone who would be nice to children. She decided he must be a very good person to have such an important job. Emma began walking toward the guard. She was not afraid. In her innocent mind, she was going to meet a new friend. She had been taught to be polite and friendly to people, especially to people who had important jobs. Teachers, doctors, police officers, and soldiers were all people her mother had told her to respect and admire. The crowd behind the barriers began to notice the little girl in the pink dress walking toward the parade. At first, people thought it was part of the ceremony. Maybe she was supposed to present flowers to the visitor. But as they watched longer, they realized this was not planned. This was a little girl who had somehow gotten past the security barriers. People began pointing and talking louder. Some shouted warnings, but Emma did not understand they were talking to her. She thought they were just excited about the parade. The noise from the crowd mixed with the music from the band, creating a wall of sound that made it hard to understand individual voices. Sophia finally spotted Emma on the street. Her heart nearly stopped beating. Her daughter was walking directly toward the Royal Guard formation. Sophia pushed through the crowd, trying to get to the barrier. She called Emma's name as loudly as she could, but Emma was too focused on the guard to hear her mother's voice. Sergeant James Wellington had been a Royal Guard for 20 years. He had seen every kind of situation that could happen during a parade. He had dealt with protesters, photographers who got too close, and even animals that wandered into the parade route. But he had never seen a small child with special needs walking directly toward his formation. Wellington noticed Emma, when she was still 5 feet away. His training told him to maintain formation and let the security officers deal with unauthorized people in the parade area. But there were no security officers close enough to reach Emma before she reached him. He would have to handle this situation himself. The sergeant's mind worked quickly. He could see that Emma was not a threat. She was clearly a child with special needs who had somehow gotten past the barriers. She carried a small flag and wore a pretty dress. Her face showed pure joy and excitement, not fear or anger. This was not a security emergency. This was a child who needed gentle guidance. Wellington looked at Emma's face as she approached. He saw her wide eyes filled with wonder. He saw her gentle smile that showed no fear or hesitation. He saw the way she held her little flag like it was the most precious thing in the world. In that moment, 20 years of military training competed with basic human kindness. Emma stopped about 3 feet in front of the guard. She looked up at him with complete trust and admiration. To her, he was the most magnificent person she had ever seen. His uniform was even more beautiful up close. The gold braiding had tiny details that looked like leaves and flowers. The buttons reflected her own face back at her like funhouse mirrors. The guard's first instinct was to maintain his position and wait for security. His second instinct was to protect this vulnerable child. His third instinct, the one that surprised him, was to simply appreciate the pure joy and innocence that Emma brought with her. In 30 seconds, she had reminded him why he had wanted to become a guard in the first place. Wellington faced a choice that no training manual had prepared him for. He could maintain strict protocol and wait for others to handle the situation. He could break formation and escort Emma back to safety himself, or he could do something completely unexpected. He could allow this moment of innocent wonder to exist. For just a few seconds longer, Emma tilted her head and smiled at the guard. She raised her little flag and waved it gently at him. In her simple way, she was showing him the respect her mother had taught her. She was sharing her excitement and joy with someone she thought deserved it. She had no idea that she was creating a situation that would be remembered for years to come. The other guards in Wellington's unit noticed what was happening. They maintained their positions but watched carefully. They trusted their sergeant to handle the situation properly. Some of them had children of their own and understood the innocence of the moment. Others worried about breaking protocol and the consequences that might follow. Sophia had reached the barrier and was frantically trying to get through to reach Emma. Security officers were moving toward the situation, but they were still several yards away. The crowd had noticed what was happening, and many people were watching to see what would happen next. Cameras began taking pictures and recording videos. Emma looked up at the guard's face and saw something that made her even happier. Despite his serious expression, she could see kindness in his eyes. She could see that he was not angry or frightened by her presence. She saw someone who understood that she meant no harm. She saw someone who might appreciate her admiration for his beautiful uniform. Wellington made his decision. For this moment, he would choose humanity over protocol. He would allow this innocent child to have her moment of wonder. He would protect her by staying calm and keeping the situation peaceful. Most importantly, he would remember that sometimes the most important part of serving others is recognizing their basic humanity. Emma took one more small step toward the guard. She was now close enough to see every detail of his uniform, close enough to smell the leather of his boots and the brass cleaner on his buttons, close enough to feel like she was part of the magic that had captured her imagination. She had never been happier in her entire 8 years of life. Emma stood directly in front of Sergeant Wellington now. She had to tilt her head back to see his face because he was so much taller than she was. The top of her head barely reached his chest. From this close, his uniform looked even more amazing than she had imagined. Every thread seemed to shine with its own light. The little girl reached out her hand very slowly. She was not trying to grab or pull anything. She simply wanted to touch one of the beautiful golden buttons on the guard's jacket. Her small finger extended toward a button that was right at her eye level. The button was so shiny she could see her own reflection in it. Wellington watched Emma's hand move toward his uniform. Every rule he had ever learned told him to step back or redirect her attention. But something about her gentle approach and obvious wonder made him stay perfectly still. He could see that she was not trying to damage anything or cause trouble. She was simply a child experiencing pure amazement. Emma's fingertip touched the golden button very gently. It felt cool and smooth under her skin. The metal was harder than anything she had ever touched before. She could feel tiny ridges and patterns carved into the surface. The button was attached so firmly to the jacket that it did not move at all when she touched it. "Pretty," Emma whispered. Her voice was so soft that only Wellington could hear her. The word came from deep in her heart. She was not just talking about the button. She was talking about everything she saw. The uniform, the ceremony, the music, the horses, and most of all, the kindness she felt from this tall guard who let her touch his beautiful button. Wellington looked down at Emma's face as she spoke. Her eyes were wide with wonder and joy. Her smile was so pure and genuine that it made his heart feel warm. In 20 years of ceremonies and parades, he had never seen anyone appreciate his uniform the way this little girl did. She made him remember why he was proud to wear it. Emma moved her hand to touch another button. This one had a different pattern carved into it. It looked like tiny flowers arranged in a circle. She traced the pattern with her finger, trying to understand how someone could make such beautiful details in metal. Everything about the guard's uniform seemed like magic to her. The crowd behind the barriers was completely quiet now. Hundreds of people were watching this unexpected moment between a royal guard and a little girl with special needs. Some people were worried about what might happen. Others were amazed by the gentleness of the scene. Many people had tears in their eyes as they watched Emma's innocent joy. Sophia had managed to get closer to the barrier, but security officers were keeping her from climbing over. She could see Emma touching the guard's uniform and talking to him quietly. Even though she was worried, Sophia could see that her daughter was safe. The guard was being patient and kind. Emma was being gentle and respectful. Wellington remained perfectly still as Emma continued to explore his uniform. She touched the gold braiding that decorated his sleeves. Her fingers followed the twisted patterns like she was reading a story written in golden thread. She had never seen such detailed and beautiful decorations on any piece of clothing. Emma noticed the guard's belt and the special buckle that held it closed. The buckle was made of shiny brass and had the royal seal carved into it. The design showed a crown with jewels and ribbons. Emma had seen crowns in her picture books, but never one that looked so real and important. "Crown," Emma said, pointing at the buckle. She looked up at Wellington's face to see if he understood what she was saying. Wellington nodded very slightly. It was the smallest movement possible, but Emma saw it and smiled even bigger. She felt like she was having a conversation with the most important person she had ever met. Wellington was amazed by Emma's attention to detail. She noticed things about his uniform that most adults never saw. She appreciated the craftsmanship and beauty that went into every piece. She understood that someone had worked very hard to make everything perfect. Her appreciation made him feel proud of his appearance and his role. Emma's attention turned to the colorful feathers on Wellington's hat. They were attached to the hat with a golden clip that sparkled in the sunlight. The feathers moved gently in the breeze, creating a dancing motion that fascinated Emma. She pointed at them and giggled softly. "Dancing," Emma said, watching the feathers move. Wellington looked up at his own hat, something he had never done while in formation. For a moment, he saw his uniform through Emma's eyes. Things that had become ordinary to him were magical and wonderful to her. She helped him remember the beauty in his everyday world. The visiting dignitary, who had been watching from his carriage, signaled for his driver to slow down. He wanted to see what was happening with the little girl and the guard. He had attended hundreds of ceremonies in his lifetime, but he had never seen anything quite like this moment of pure human connection. Emma looked at Wellington's face again. She could see that he was not angry with her. His eyes were kind and patient. Even though he stood very straight and looked very serious, she could tell that he was a good person. She decided she wanted to give him something to show her appreciation. Emma looked down at the little flag in her hand. It was the most precious thing she owned at that moment. Her mother had made it especially for this day. It represented Emma's respect and excitement for the special visitor. But she felt that this guard deserved something special too. Very carefully, Emma held up her flag toward Wellington. She was not trying to give it to him permanently. She just wanted to share it with him. She wanted him to see how pretty it was and how much it meant to her. The flag fluttered in the breeze, its red, white, and blue colors bright against the guard's red uniform. Wellington looked at the flag Emma was showing him. He could see that it was handmade with love and care. The stitching was not perfect, but it was done with great attention. The golden star in the center had been cut out and sewn on by hand. This was not a store-bought flag. This was something special made by someone who cared about this day. Emma waved the flag very gently near Wellington's uniform. She was not trying to touch him with it. She just wanted the flag to dance in the air near his beautiful buttons and braiding. In her mind, the flag and the uniform belonged together. They were both beautiful and important and deserving of respect. Other guards in the formation watched their sergeant with amazement. They had never seen Wellington break protocol, even in small ways. But they could see that this was not really breaking protocol. This was something beyond protocol. This was a moment of human kindness that transcended rules and regulations. Emma stepped back slightly and looked at Wellington's entire uniform again. She wanted to remember every detail, the way his jacket fitted perfectly, the way his boots reflected the sunlight, the way his hat sat at exactly the right angle, the way everything worked together to create an image of dignity and importance. Wellington felt something he had not expected to feel during a formal ceremony. He felt grateful, not grateful for his position or his training or his uniform. He felt grateful for this little girl who had reminded him why his job mattered. She had shown him that what he did brought joy and wonder to people. She had given meaning to his service. Emma smiled one more time at Wellington. It was a smile that said thank you without using words. It was a smile that said she understood how special he was. It was a smile that said she would never forget this moment or this kind guard who let her see his beautiful uniform up close. The moment could not last forever. Security officers were approaching, and the parade needed to continue. But for these few precious minutes, a royal guard and a little girl with special needs had shared something that no rule book could have planned. They had shared pure human connection across barriers of duty, protocol, and circumstances. The sound of approaching footsteps told Wellington that security officers were finally getting close enough to handle the situation. He knew that his moment with Emma would have to end soon. The parade could not stop for much longer. And there, were protocols that needed to be followed. But he also knew that this had been one of the most meaningful moments of his entire career. Emma heard the footsteps, too, but she did not understand what they meant. She was still lost in the wonder of being so close to the beautiful guard and his amazing uniform. She had touched real gold buttons and seen real feathers dance in the wind. She had made a friend with someone who wore the most magnificent clothes she had ever seen. Sophia had been watching the entire scene with a mixture of worry and amazement. She could see that Emma was safe and happy. She could see that the guard was being incredibly patient and kind with her daughter. But she also knew that Emma needed to come back to safety before the situation became more complicated. Two security officers approached from Emma's left side. They moved slowly and carefully, not wanting to frighten the little girl or create any sudden movements that might cause problems. They had been watching the scene and understood that this was a gentle situation that needed to be handled with care. Wellington made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Before the security officers could reach Emma, he took one small step backward and gave her the tiniest of nods. It was his way of saying goodbye to his new friend. It was his way of telling her that their moment together had been special for him, too. Emma saw the guard's small nod and understood that he was saying goodbye. She felt a little sad that their meeting was ending, but she also felt incredibly happy about everything that had happened. She had met a real royal guard, and he had been kind to her. She had touched real gold buttons and seen real dancing feathers. "Thank you," Emma whispered to Wellington. Her voice was so quiet that only he could hear her words. She did not fully understand what she was thanking him for, but she knew that he had given her something wonderful. He had shared his beautiful uniform with her and had been patient while she explored every detail. Wellington felt his heart grow warm when he heard Emma's tiny thank you. In 20 years of service, he had received many official thanks from important people. But none of those had meant as much to him as these two simple words from a little girl who had found joy in the simple act of appreciating his uniform. The first security officer reached Emma's side. He was a kind man named Officer Rodriguez, who had children of his own. He had been watching the scene and had seen how gentle and respectful Emma had been throughout the entire encounter. He knew that this situation needed to be handled with understanding, not authority. "Hello there, sweetheart," Officer Rodriguez said softly to Emma. "My name is Officer Rodriguez. I think your mommy is looking for you. Would you like me to help you find her?" His voice was warm and friendly. He did not want Emma to feel like she was in trouble or that she had done something wrong. Emma looked up at Officer Rodriguez. She could see that he was wearing a uniform too, though it was different from the guard's uniform. His was blue instead of red, and it had silver buttons instead of gold ones. She thought it was very nice, but not quite as magnificent as Wellington's uniform. "Pretty guard," Emma said to Officer Rodriguez, pointing at Wellington. She wanted to make sure the officer understood how wonderful the guard was. She wanted everyone to know that she had met someone very special and that he had been kind to her. Officer Rodriguez smiled at Emma's comment. He looked at Wellington and nodded respectfully. Both men understood that something special had just happened. They had witnessed a moment of pure human connection that transcended all the rules and regulations that usually governed their work. "Yes, he is a very pretty guard," Officer Rodriguez agreed with Emma. "And you are a very pretty little girl. But now we need to get you back to your mommy. She's been very worried about you." He held out his hand to Emma, offering to walk with her back to the barriers. Emma took Officer Rodriguez's hand, but she turned back to look at Wellington one more time. She waved her little flag at him in a final goodbye. The flag fluttered in the breeze, its colors bright against the serious backdrop of the formal ceremony. Emma's smile was so bright, it seemed to light up the entire street. Wellington remained at attention, but his eyes followed Emma as she walked away with the security officer. He watched her pink dress flutter in the breeze just like the feathers on his hat. He watched her hold her precious flag carefully as she walked. He knew he would remember this little girl for the rest of his life. Sophia was waiting at the barrier with tears of relief in her eyes. When she saw Emma walking back with Officer Rodriguez, she felt like she could breathe again. She had been terrified that something bad might happen, but instead she had witnessed something beautiful. She had seen her daughter's joy touch the heart of a stranger. "Mama!" Emma called out when she saw Sophia. She let go of Officer Rodriguez's hand and ran the last few steps to her mother. Sophia knelt down and wrapped Emma in a big hug. She held her daughter tight, grateful that everything had turned out well. "I saw the pretty guard, Mama," Emma said excitedly as Sophia held her. "He had gold buttons and dancing feathers, and he was very nice to me. I touched his pretty buttons, and he said thank you." Emma's words tumbled out quickly as she tried to share all her excitement with her mother. Sophia looked back toward the parade route. She could see Wellington still standing in formation with the other guards. The ceremony was continuing, but she could tell that something had changed. The guard looked different somehow. He looked like someone who had just experienced something meaningful and special. Officer Rodriguez helped Emma climb back through the gap in the barrier. He made sure she was safely with her mother before returning to his duties. As he walked away, he was smiling. In 15 years of security work, he had never seen anything quite like the gentle encounter he had just witnessed. The parade continued. Down the street. The visiting dignitary's carriage moved slowly past the spot where Emma and Wellington had shared their moment. The dignitary himself was still thinking about what he had seen. He had attended thousands of formal events, but he knew he had just witnessed something extraordinary. Emma climbed back onto her chair and waved at the rest of the parade. She cheered for the horses and clapped for the band. But her eyes kept returning to the guard formation, looking for her new friend, Wellington. She could still see him marching with the other guards, his red uniform bright in the afternoon sun. As the parade moved further down the street, Emma continued to wave her flag. But now it meant something different to her. It was not just a pretty decoration anymore. It was a symbol of the wonderful moment she had shared with the kind guard. It was a reminder of the day she touched real gold buttons and made a friend with someone very important. Wellington marched with his unit for the rest of the parade route, but his mind kept returning to the little girl in the pink dress. He thought about her gentle touch on his buttons. He thought about her whispered pretty and thank you. He thought about how she had reminded him of the wonder and beauty in things he had started to take for granted. Sophia watched the rest of the parade with Emma, but she was also thinking about what had just happened. She had seen her daughter's innocent joy touch the heart of a complete stranger. She had seen kindness triumph over rigid rules. She had seen that sometimes the most important moments in life happen when we least expect them. Several photographers had captured the moment between Emma and Wellington. The pictures would appear in newspapers the next day. The story would be shared around the world as an example of kindness and human connection. But for Emma and Wellington, the moment was already perfect without any publicity. As the last of the parade passed by, Emma sat back in her chair with a satisfied sigh. She clutched her flag to her chest and smiled at her mother. "Best day ever, Mama," she said simply. Sophia smiled back and agreed completely. It had indeed been the best day ever. Years later, Emma would still talk about the nice soldier man who let her touch his beautiful buttons. She would remember every detail of his uniform and the way he nodded goodbye to her. The memory would remain bright and perfect in her mind, a treasure she would carry forever. Wellington returned to his duties that day with a new understanding of why his job mattered. He had always known that his role was about service and duty, but Emma had shown him that it was also about bringing wonder and joy to people. She had reminded him that sometimes the most important part of serving others is simply allowing them to see the beauty in what you do. The barrier that had seemed so important at the beginning of the day now seemed like just a small obstacle that could not stop genuine human connection. Emma had crossed more than just a physical barrier. She had crossed the barriers between different worlds, different responsibilities, and different ways of seeing life. And in doing so, she had created a moment of magic that would be remembered long after the parade was forgotten.